want to caution you, okay? I want to caution you because I don't want you to get caught up like your boy Max Kellerman, making proclamations, when it's this early. I want to caution you that the Patriots, and I've been with that organization for 5 years, so I know the team you see now is not going to be the same team you see around Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. That's always been the goal with New England Patriots. They want to get better, and they want to transform by November, because that's when meaningful games are really start being played. So this team, the way you look at them now, trust me when I tell you this, they're not going to be that same team come November. So I think we're in wait-and-see mode right now.
Damian Woody right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Is it really a two-horse race within the AFC and that's it? Or is it really, really about somebody else that we might not be looking at that we should look at in the AFC to compete with Kansas City and New England?
Listen. Someone could emerge. Who knows what's going to happen with Cleveland or, with the Los Angeles Chargers. Different teams. But for my money, it's New England, Kansas City. New England, Kansas City is almost like the new New England, Indianapolis rivalry, because it just seems like those two franchises are just a step above everybody else in the AFC right now. So until I see otherwise, it's those two, and then it's the rest of the pack.
Are we doing a disservice to the Los Angeles Chargers, or even the Indianapolis Colts, or even the Houston Texans by not putting them in the mix?
I don't think we're not doing them a disservice. We're just speaking fact. I'm just speaking matter of factly right now. I mean, when you look at the Patriots, their defense is dominating. The offense is still a work in progress. But I know when it comes to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, they'll figure it out. They'll be playing much better as the year goes along. And with the Kansas City Chiefs, again, their primary weapon hasn't even returned yet. Imagine this offense when Tyreek Hill gets back. My God, it's going to be something to behold. So to me, those are the two teams in the AFC, and then everyone else is playing catch up.
There can be no doubt about Russell Wilson. That guy has played at an elite level in the National Football League the last 3 years.
Russell play fake, drops back, gonna throw it deep. Got a man, it's Metcalf, he's out there, touchdown, Seahawks, from 40 yards out.
We forgot that there's a particular quarterback in the NFC playing better than anybody in the conference. His name would happen to be Russell Wilson.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
ESPN News is being brought to you by New Shell V-Power Nitro plus premium gasoline. Now with 4 levels of defense against gunk, wear, corrosion, and friction. Back to the phones we go at 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. It is the Stephen A. Smith Show. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's get right to it. Let's go to Jamin. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. Thanks for having me on.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, first off, I think you should apologize to your boy Mike Greenberg. Mike Greenberg and your boy Louis Riddick. Not many people can pull off the casual Friday look like you can, sir.
I mean, they pulling it off, and it was like they got the shirts extra unbuttoned, stuff looking like they were trying to audition for Chippendales. That's all I brought it up. But go ahead.
All right, so 2 points real quick. I just want to say, honestly, I believe Russell Wilson should be up there with names like Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes is one of the best throwers in football right now. What he did last night was unbelievable, unlike anything I've seen. That throw to Tyler Lockett in the corner in that first quarter was something beautiful. Second point, and I think more importantly, I heard you guys on First Take debating about how if LA was lucky or not. I think one of the bigger points is their number one, their lack of run game that they've not only shown last night, but the past few games. Todd Gurley has yet to have a 100-yard game. He only ran for 55 yards, albeit for 2 touchdowns last night. So do you think that if that continues, not only their lack of run game, but their inability to stop the run, Do you think that the play calling of Sean McVay, and
No,
the connection
listen. I think their problem is, obviously their offensive line isn't considered having a great reputation. They're going to have to run block and let Todd Gurley loose. And I think as long as they do that, the Rams defense, despite the 55 points they gave up to Tampa, is the kind of defense that bends a lot, but won't necessarily break all the time. Some afternoons, some Sundays, they will show up. They will show up and they will get the job done. But your offense has to be more consistent. Todd Gurley is a stud. Without him, they're an entirely different team. Appreciate the call, though. Thank you. John, you're live with Stephen A. What's up, John?
Hey, Stephen A. First of all, I want to commend you on a call that you had last week with a guy that called up complaining about Dak Prescott and the contract and you not letting him off the hook and asking him the question, why did he not call up when the other quarterbacks who happened to have been white, and you didn't say that, which was brilliant on your part, but and you wouldn't let him off the hook. It was obvious why he didn't call for those quarterbacks.
All right.
But here's my point. And we talked about this briefly a couple weeks ago. The problem with the NCAA and this whole California thing and extending into other states, and in the final minute, the NCAA will swoop in and make it a national rule for the NCAA. But the problem is, this affects other college athletes, not only in the other sports other than the Big Two, but also the kid that goes to, let's say, Fordham on a Division I basketball scholarship. Those schools are not going to be able to afford to beat Division I anymore. There's only going to be a handful of Division I schools, and everybody else will be something else.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Because they won't be able to afford that. The Davidson won't get the Steph Curry. Maybe that's a bad example, but
the whole point is, one could argue that's the case now, and that's been the case for many years.
But it's not. How many pros come out of St. Joe's?
Not too many. That's my point.
But they do, though. They do. If you look back, Galloway.
Man, you could give me Jameer Nelson, Delonte West. You could give me a handful of guys. The bottom line is, for the most part, the reality is we're talking because individual talent, scouts on the NBA level and beyond, they're going to find those guys no matter where they're playing. But in terms of powerhouse teams joining big conferences, big money programs, et cetera, that's already been happening for years. That's a fact.
You have to understand how schools make money. They make athletic programs. If they advance, if they win the A-10, they win the Patriot League, and they win a game or two in the NCAAs, they make money from that.
So in other words, I covered sports for 25 years. You think I didn't know that?
Well, I'm just saying
the point that I'm trying to make to you is that there's always been an imbalance. What we're talking about now is individual marquee names having the opportunity to profit off of their likeness. If you're Chris Webber and you have your name on the back of a jersey being sold on the campus of Michigan during the Fab Five era, and how come it's a violation if the school gives you a jersey, but other people can walk in there and get jerseys anytime they want to? How is that? I
completely understand that it's wrong. You're right. It's wrong.
So what I'm talking about is, as long as the school doesn't have to come out of pocket to pay players, then you're talking about marquee guys being able to profit off of their own likeness. Now, the reality is that to elevate your profile, you might go to those big-time programs for the television exposure and things of that nature, but you were doing that anyway. So the only thing that's changed here is that because the individual player could potentially find a way to market himself and to profit off of his own likeness, that's less money that advertisers and sponsors might feel the need to throw into the coffers of universities, because instead they're now allowed to give it to the individual. And even then, we're only talking about a handful of individuals. So what's the problem?
I agree. I agree. I worry about the other side of this, where the lower Division I conferences will not. Well,
let me say this to you in all fairness. I can respect your concern. Here's my problem. My problem is this, and I'm not trying to sit up there and say that you're just oblivious or you don't care about the welfare and the well-being of those student athletes that have been exploited. How come we never have those concerns for the institutions? How come nobody had these concerns when the institutions were out there exploiting these guys and getting all the stuff that they got off of the backs of these individuals that generated this money? Why is it that the two revenue-generating sports is basketball and football, primarily African-American participants, by the way, and everybody's suddenly concerned because a few of them would have the opportunity to profit off of their own name and likeness, but universities, institutions, etc., that clearly are run by white folks can sit up there and get all the money that they can and all the advantages and perks that they can get off the backs of these guys, and nobody has any concerns. Why is that?
I completely agree with you, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I have a concern about the other side, which also can be African American as well. But
well, I guess my retort to that would be, if you've been taking advantage of somebody for years, why should anybody be concerned about what may harm you? You've been harming everybody else. If somebody's a bully, that bully that's been beating up people for all that time.
I get it. It's like healthcare. There's no answer. We have to take it piece by piece.
There's no perfect answer, but there is an answer. And sometimes to the victors goes the spoil. Sometimes things have to happen to somewhat even the scales. It's just like, I'll take it on a serious level for you just for a second, John, before we get on out of here. It's just like affirmative action. On its face, of course, no one should even come close to having an unfair advantage. Of course, somebody shouldn't be given an upper hand. We should always have equality, and everybody should have the freedom to compete on an equal and even playing scale. Nobody would disagree with that. The problem is, from an historical perspective, other folks other than black folks have had an upper hand systemically and beyond, spanning decades, if not centuries. And so in an effort to try to make up for the lead that obviously you gave yourself for so many years, something was implemented from a policy perspective to address that concern. And there are people that'll come along thereafter saying, it ain't right, it ain't right, it ain't right. But systemically, looking at this country and the advantages that people have for how long they have had it, how did that happen? There was nothing about that was fair, but ultimately it demanded that something transpire to flip the scales to some degree so you could address the issue of inequality.
That is 100% true. I've got to think about what you've said, and I agree with you. Again, it's just a concern that we need to keep.
I understand, and I respect it, and I appreciate it. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, I want to be very, very clear. You're not wrong to sit up there and say there's a legitimate concern coming from the other side. The problem is, as legitimate as that concern is, they have been the one exercising unfairness and inequality to their advantage. And now that something is not to their advantage, they're in an uproar. Well, let me get my cobble, let me get my tissue and shed a tear for them. Who gives a damn what they feel after all unfair practices they've engaged in all of these years? Appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back with your calls to close out the show in a minute. Don't touch that dial. It's Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News.